Stops with the NPA when it comes to criminal tax offenders. That's the view of Legal Manager Jashwin Baijoo. In an opinion piece, Baijoo says that despite calls by SARS as well as those damning findings by the Zondo Commission against certain individuals, the NPA has failed to take action against tax evaders. We speak to him right now, and thank you for joining us this afternoon, Jashwin. Maybe talk about the severity of these evaders that we have and the implications that they have on the overall economy.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. So, as a starting point, we must note that with regards to the prosecutions, as much as the focus is not limited to your so-called high net worth individuals, that is where it has fallen. And we can see that by virtue of the SARS High Net Worth Individual Unit being a dedicated unit that assigns these high net worth individuals specified relationship managers within the Revenue Authority's organization. From a severity perspective, however, we see in recent events, and this is with regards to the former Eskom CEO's wife, as an example, the SARS non-compliance element of it spans into tens of millions and occasionally hundreds of millions. What this has shown is that from an economic perspective, the tax on these amounts, this revenue earned, is substantial and has not been paid over to the taxman, which has the knock-on effect of resulting in a collection deficit. And that can very easily follow on to proposed increased tax rates for following fiscal periods based on a larger deficit for a prior period which must be made up, meaning that should this continue and should it spread wider, it's a knock-on effect that will be felt by all South Africans.
Absolutely. But what about the argument, and we've heard this over the last few months since the report and the details surrounding state capture came out, is that institutions like the NPA just don't have the resources to be going after those who've been implicated or those who've been evading tax?
So if you want to take it from the angle of resources, in 2021, if I recall correctly, it was around August, SARS and the NPA issued a joint media statement where they publicly announced that both authorities had dedicated teams to focus on this non-compliance detection and subsequent prosecution. So the resource argument does not seem to actually hold water when it's been publicly noted that resources have been specifically assigned for this purpose.
Right. In terms of what is actually happening within the NPA, have you seen any kind of movement at all when it comes to tackling these cases?
We've seen movement to the extent where it's teed up by SARS. SARS conducts the full investigations, ascertains the non-compliance, and thereafter conducts a further investigation to ascertain what the basis of this non-compliance is, be it from an intentional or negligent willful perspective. Should they discover that there's a fraudulent element to the specific taxpayer's non-compliance, the case is then teed up and prepped for the NPA. However, what we've seen is that's typically where it stops. I mean, that should ideally be just the start. It's like in golf. You tee up and then you play the shot. But all we're seeing is a whole lot of tees, but no hole in one.
No, absolutely. And what is encouraging is that we have seen that SARS has had a number of successes when it comes to catching those dodgers, like you explained, whether they're intentional or they've just made a mistake in this regard.
That's correct. We've seen SARS over the last 2 or 3 years, and this very much speaks to having the correct leadership under Kisweta, where SARS has picked up its non-compliance detection game to the extent where they're currently in the process of implementing AI that will serve to pick up this non-compliance on a far more efficient basis than a human can. And the knock-on effect will be that there will then be a wider net cost in terms of non-compliance. It will be easier to detect, and it is then handed over to the more senior SARS officials to conduct the respective audit or investigation should there be criminal considerations.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for your time there. I've been speaking to we've been speaking there to Jashwin Baijoo, rather, who's talking to us about the tax issues that we've been seeing.